Hey you folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to Let's Play some Democracy 3 Africa. Democracy is a fantastic game series by Positech Games that has you running a country and having you manage virtually every aspect of a country's government. It's a wonderful little indie game from Positech's basically a one-man organization. It's Cliff Harris runs the company. It makes a lot of great games. Kudos, Gratuitous Space Battle. Really enjoy their products considerably. Democracy 3 Africa was actually designed by Jeffrey Sheen, but is running on the same engine as Democracy 3. It is a standalone expansion. You don't need the base game, you just buy Democracy 3 Africa as is. So it's not a mod or anything like that, but you don't need any of the previous ones. And previously, Democracy mostly just dealt with Western democracies, European powers, and countries in the Americas. With Democracy 3 Africa, we are moving into Africa, obviously, which has a different political issues going on, and therefore it really does fit as a separate game rather than trying to make one version of the game that sort of applies to everything. So we're going to have a different set of decisions to make, and we're going to have a different set of problems to deal with. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. Now, this should be the same release version that you are playing. I believe the game releases on April 12th. Technically, I'm playing this ahead of release, but I believe it's going to be the same version as you are playing here. I have, however, played it about a month ago, well pre-released. I played it during a charity fundraising live stream with my wife, Essentia. We really love playing Democracy in general, and with Democracy 3 Africa coming out, we thought it would be a perfect fit, and so we wrote to the producer and asked, hey, can we please get an early build? And they were really nice to give us one, even though the game wasn't finished, it wasn't balanced. There was things missing. They're like, you know what? We have enough confidence in this title to let you take an early crack at it, even though probably there's going to be bugs. And there were a few, and yet we still had an incredible amount of fun with it, which I think goes a lot to show that the title. It's also really fun to watch, especially streamed. So, there's a variety of nations we can play as. We can play as Mauritius, Botswana, Tunisia, South Africa, Ghana, Senegal, Zambia, Kenya, Nigeria, or Egypt over here. And each country is going to have a different difficulty level because they all have different population densities, different initial demographic setups, different GDP, the gross domestic product, basically the total amount of money your whole country is making, more or less, different amount of initial debt, different amount of this human development index, which is sort of education plus health plus income inequality and different things, although I guess the income inequality is also the Gini income inequality index, and so on and so forth. Some countries are inherently going to be easier than others, although they all have their own individual little problems, and so the solutions used to fix things in one country may not work in another, which has always been great fun. This African version of Democracy 3 has some very challenging countries. In particular, we tried Egypt on the stream and got crushed. South Africa was a fair bit easier. Egypt was very tricky. I suspect that Nigeria, with one of the highest corruptions and lowest literacies of this list. So Kenya's got a bit more corruption, because lower is worse, but more literacy. GDP, they don't have debt listed. They don't have all the same things listed for every single country because they're mostly just trying to highlight some of the more interesting things. So you see Egypt here has, like, they're highlighting the public debt because it's quite high. So we're going to try Egypt because we tried Egypt on the stream and got our butts kicked. Then I think after we went to South Africa, which went better, but we're going to go ahead and start this up. So you get to set up your basic country thing, choose your party. This is just a name. It has no impact whatsoever on your actual gameplay. So we're going to call this Quilly18 is our savior party, and we're gonna go and call the other side internet trolls. There we go. That's our opposition right there, and you can tweak a few other things about your country. I usually like to leave these as is, at least for the first run, just to try to get a baseline experience. You can generally make things easier by making your terms longer because it gives you more time to fix problems before the next election, which is good because you're going to need as much time as you can. You can decide how long you can play in a country. I like to set a term limit, and in particular, I often like to leave it at whatever the default is, which is typically going to be 2 or 3, because I want there to be a time limit about how much I can improve a country. So this seems like a pretty good length for me. And there's a few other events that you can have toggled on and off. Some countries will have these turned on, some will not. We're going to leave these as is over here. And then you can mess around with some sliders to change some of the basic gameplay. So we're going to go ahead and get started over here. And we're going to be playing as Egypt. Congratulations on your election victory. Welcome to your new job as president. The lives of all 84 million citizens are now in your hands. As you will imagine, there are a number of situations and concerns you will need to deal with as soon as possible, while keeping an eye on the long-term improvement of our citizens' quality of life. Plus, do not forget that you face re-election in 4 years, so you will need to monitor the opinion polls and our party membership. Good luck. So there's no real way to sort of quote-unquote win the game overall. What you can do... Sorry, I'm just pouring myself some more coffee here. I'm just realizing I'm a little bit parched. So there is an election every X number of years, depending on what you have chosen as your setting. And so winning the election is certainly a big victory, but then you just start your next term and it's like, okay, winning long term, usually it's setting up personal goals. There are lots of achievements though that you can go for, and that, you know, that's another way of determining victory. But a lot of times you're just trying to improve a country as much as possible. Or you may have a particular theme in mind. You're like, this time I'm going to be playing as, I don't know, religious socialists. And the next time you're going to be like, I'm going to play liberal capitalists. And the next one you're going to be, I'm going to try to eliminate all automobile traffic completely and replace it entirely with mass transit, and so on and so on and so forth. So you can have a huge variety of personal goals that way. There are a couple of different ways to lose, though. First way to lose is you can just fail to get reelected. Second way to lose, you can be assassinated. That can happen if you upset fringe groups a little bit too much. And I'm trying to remember, I think you can go outright bankrupt as well. But usually you lose from something else first. Usually the fact that you have no money means you just don't get reelected. But I think you can actually go bankrupt as well. Anyway, we've got some things here giving us a glance of the state of our country. Our gross domestic product is very bad. We're a relatively poor nation. Our health is very low. Our education is very low. Our unemployment is very high. We have almost no crime, which is probably because we have basically like a tyrannical police force. And poverty is kind of middling. It certainly could be worse, but it's certainly not good. So we're going to begin the term of office. So right away, you might be a little bit overwhelmed by what you see on the screen, but let's break it down a bit. At the very top over here, we've got a variety of numbers. This first one is your political capital. This is what you spend to enact new laws or make changes to current laws, including things like changing the tax rate and so on and so forth. As Egypt, we actually start with a lot, and I think we make a lot per turn. I think there's a modifier based on the sort of political situation in your country, and basically we have a lot of political capital in that, so we can sort of unilaterally affect a lot of change just based on our own personal will. Whereas other countries, you generate less political capital, so you can't make vast sweeping changes as quickly because presumably, you know, you've got a larger government and more checks and balances or something like that. Here is our income, 540 billion pounds. I believe this is per quarter. Every turn in this game, I believe, is a quarter. So we have, I might be wrong, it might be per month. Does it give us a monthly thing here? Each turn takes 3 months. Yeah, there we go. So, and we are gonna have 16 turns to the next election because, you know, 4 times 4 is 16. So this is every quarter, every 3 months. We make 540 billion pounds. The problem is we're also spending 815 billion pounds per quarter, which means we have a deficit of 275 billion pounds, which means every year we're going to run up $1 trillion in debt, and we're already $2 trillion in debt. This is really bad. This is really, really bad. Some countries start off with an almost balanced budget. I think there might be, occasionally you might find some that actually are making money, in which case they have other problems. Most countries are running a deficit of some type. This is our timer until the next election, and then we have a variety of buttons over here that we can look at, and we will look at soon, and then there's the next button to go to the next turn. Okay, we've got that. In the middle of the screen, these bars represent all the different demographics in your country and how much they like you or hate you. Every person in this game does represent more than one of these groups. So you can have a parent who's a motorist who is conservative but poor, right? So you can have someone belongs to multiple groups, and we can look at that a little bit more later on. But these are all the different groups over here, and the green bar, or red bar, shows you how much they like you or hate you. Conservatives in this country really like us right now because of the current set of laws. Environmentalists really hate us. Liberals really hate us. Conservatives and liberals are opposed to each other, right? Those are the two opposite sides of the coin. And capitalists and socialists are an opposite side of a different coin. You can be a liberal capitalist, you can be a socialist conservative. That is perfectly fine. This game correctly distinguishes that there is a difference between those things. And so we've got a variety of groups, and also, and depending on exactly how YouTube decides to process this video, this may be harder or easier to see, but in the background of each one of these groups, there's sort of a gray bar, and the more full the gray bar is, the higher percentage of people in your country belong to that group. So for example, if I click on conservatives, which had a very full bar, you can see 82% of the people in my country are conservative. And that has certain implications. If I pass a law that upsets conservatives, it's going to upset a lot of people. Or if I pass a law that they like, then it will make them happy. And conversely, very few people in my country are liberals, because you can't really be both conservative and liberal. They're opposite sides of the coin. And so how much do they like me? Well, I could pass laws that upset the liberals, and it might not be too bad because there's not that many of them. But some of the laws I'm going to want to pass are probably pro-liberal and anti-conservative, and then how am I going to deal with that? Now, we did play as Egypt, as I said, in a very early pre-release build, and I believe that version of Egypt started with just as many conservatives, if not more, and also started with a very, very high percentage of the population as religious. Here, in this build, only 45% of the population is religious, which I believe will make life a lot easier. I might be mistaken. It may have been like this in our pre-release build as well, but I felt like it was higher. I should have actually compared. I think I still have it sitting around. Still, the religious group is a very large portion of our population here, and so it's something we're going to have to keep track of. Some people are really not happy with us, environmentalists. Now, they're only 28% of the population. That's not, that's not a tiny amount, and they're very unhappy about us. Women, for some reason, make up about 50% of our population. Go figure. And they're really unhappy in this country, which is bad. That's half of our electorate who are really unpleased. And the trade unionists also aren't happy, but there's not a lot of them. So anyway, that's our initial situation. There's also an everyone group over here, and obviously everyone belongs to the everyone group. And this accrues certain things that affects everyone. No one is happy about civil uprisings. Doesn't matter what group you're in, you're not happy about civil uprisings. It is possible for your popularity, this is basically how many people are going to vote for you, more or less, if the election were held today. It is possible for the everyone group to be quite unhappy, but still, have a higher popularity, because there's things in your country that are just bringing everyone down, but overall everyone's happy because of the various groups they're in are being satisfied. So, right, if we still have some amount of border tension, then everyone in our country is still going to be a bit upset about that, but we might be able to please them some other way. So if the election were held today, obviously we would be elected, and that makes sense. This is like, I just got elected, so presumably people like me a lot, but if we get to the end of our term and literally nothing has changed, then people aren't going to be happy. So if we don't change anything, no one's going to vote for us. So we're going to try to improve this so that by the time our election is up in 16 terms, we'll get reelected so we can keep fixing things. So in your first term, one of your big goals is trying to keep people happy enough so that you can get a second term. You're trying to improve things. Hopefully you're trying to actually fix a lot of problems in the country, and certainly fixing problems in the country will make people happier. But you may also be passing things simply because it'll make the electorate like you a little bit more, even if it doesn't sort of advance the problems of fixing the crippling debt or pollution or obesity or all these different things that might be affecting the country. Okay, so that's the demographic. And then on the outside, we have a bunch of colored dots. They're divided into X number of categories. 7 categories? 7 categories. Starting over here is the economy, and you can just see it in the background if I mouse over. Here we've got taxes. There we've got social services, or public services, I should say. This encompasses health and education. Over on the left, we've got law and order. Top left, we've got transportation. At the very top, we've got various foreign issues, including our own military, for example. And at the top right, we've got welfare, which includes housing, certain drug situations, poverty, old age, I was going to say, I don't know. We have state pensions, so old age stuff, and so on and so forth. So those are the broad categories. And in there, you've got a variety of circles that represent certain things going on. The things in blue are basically just the state of things. For example, GDP over here is just our gross domestic product, how much money we're making overall. It's quite low. And we have no control over this directly. This is just telling us, here's our GDP. Here's everything that is causing the GDP to be in its current state. So everything that's red is bringing down GDP, everything that's green is pushing it up. And then on the right, so that's on the left, the causes, and on the right are the effects. So because of where our GDP is, it's doing various things. It's improving things, it's bringing things down, well, improving things. Because we have such a low GDP, unemployment is being sort of improved. It's being increased, right? Unemployment is being brought up because of our low GDP. Unemployment is a bad thing. So Our GDP is currently bringing this up, but if we improved our GDP considerably, this would swing down to be on the red side. So high GDP would actually be bringing down our unemployment. So that's what's important to remember, is that anything on the right, and in particular, so everything on the right is green. Green is just bringing up this effect. It doesn't always mean it's good, and this is an example of one of those things. So, so the blue things are just the current state of stuff, and we can go and click on these and find out what they are. Informal sector, currency strength, economy type. We can look here, rail usage. What about over here? Crime, okay, crime very low. What's this over here? Health, very low, etc. So that's that. White things are specific laws that have been enacted already and that we can change in some way. For example, this is income tax. We can bring income tax rates up, down. We can cancel the policy completely. Here I'm just going to revert change so we don't do anything. So that's one of those. Here we've got maternity leave. Do we have it? How generous is it? What else do we got? We've got, this is police force. Yeah, police force over here. So how much are we funding our police force? And what's nice is if you mouse over something, you can see what it is affecting. Everything else just fades out. It leaves up everything that is being affected by this particular law. And then you've got arrows. Green arrows are bringing it up. Red arrows are bringing it down. So you can see our current police force is bringing down violent crime. The speed of the arrows also indicate by how much. So we've got that. The red things are bad problems that are going on. For example, this is civil uprising. And we saw civil uprising is upsetting everyone quite a bit. It's also dramatically dragging down our GDP, our foreign relations, foreign investments, international trade. Wow, civil uprising is really bad. So there's a lot of these sort of, I don't know, these events, these statuses, I don't know how you describe them internally, that exist. And a lot of them you don't see. Like, there's other problems going on here, or that could be going on. There's more of these things, but they're not on the screen because they're not currently affecting us. But they're still being tracked internally. And if at any point internally, their current state goes above this red line, that's the start trigger, we will all of a sudden have this effect of some kind hitting us, and it will bring our country down, for example. And then to get rid of it, we actually have to drop it below the green line. So it's a lot harder to get rid of a bad thing once it kicks in. And of course, if this bad thing is kicking in, it's also going to be bringing down our country, which just makes everything a lot worse. Eliminating civil uprising would be really, really nice. One of the big things that is currently boosting civil uprising is our current state of democracy. So that, in fact, that's overwhelmingly the thing that is bringing up civil uprising. So our current democracy is bringing up civil uprising, which is bad. How does our democracy look? Our democracy is basically non-existent. So our democracy being so low is increasing civil uprising. It's also boosting the dictatorship effect right now. So that's not good. I mean, hey, it's great that we're the dictator, but we're going to try to improve things. And so we can see all the things that are bringing down democracy. I mean, some things are bringing it up. The current executive term limit and length are actually improving democracy because we have 2-term limit and a relatively short term, so that's good. But the big thing that's bringing it down is corruption and military interference. What's going to be interesting, if we look at the military interference, one of the things that is bringing up military interference is our bad stability, and our stability is bad because of our corruption and poor democracy. So you've got this sort of cycle of things. So let's take a look at corruption. Corruption is probably the thing that we could tackle. If we fix corruption, it will fix our bad democracy, and it will fix our bad stability. And if we fix our bad democracy, a lot of other things will improve. So in our first term, tackling corruption is going to be one of the key things for us to fix Egypt. We're going to try to do that while also not pissing off people too much so we don't get reelected. So we'll see what we can do about that. Also, it'd be nice if we didn't go bankrupt. So those are the red things. The green things are actually good things. For example, we have natural wonders. Well, actually, I guess they're probably not so much natural wonders as man-made wonders. We have the pyramids over here. Having bad environment, and we do have a low environment over here, is dragging down our natural wonders. That's what they should call them, national wonders. But having this natural wonder effect going on is boosting tourism, which is going to help us make more money. It's boosting our GDP, although tourism is being brought down by poor stability, poor human development. So all these things are massively interlinked. You pull one thread somewhere and everything changes. So what can we do? So we can change some of our existing laws, and we may very well want to. We can also pass new ones, which is what this idea thing is over here. These are policy ideas divided in all 7 categories, and these are new laws that we can pass. For example, if we are concerned about our corruption, we can do things like have an anti-corruption agency. This will upset voters because I think the only demographic that affects might be our social, or like our public workers. What are they called? State employees. State employees, I think, are the only group that are going to get affected by that particular idea, and they're mostly going to be annoyed by it, right? It's going to get in their way, and they're not going to like the red tape, and also they're not going to like losing the ability to skim off the top. Anti-corruption agency is very expensive. Depending on where we put our slider, if we implement this, we can spend up to $1.25 billion for it. Well, I guess $1 billion of these Egyptian pounds is not that much. We're losing 815 billion per quarter. So even at the full billion, that's nothing. What's $1 billion here and there? There we go. So we're going to pass this. It is going to take 20 of my political capital to pass this, but I'm going to go and implement this, and I'm going to set it to the max. And you can see it is going to upset state employees, but it's going to help to bring down corruption. Now, some things happen instantly. The state employees will be upset instantaneously, but the corruption will be brought down. This effect will be brought down over 16 quarters. This is a very slow effect to put in. It's going to upset people right away, but it's going to take a long time to help root out the corruption. So it actually seems like a pretty good thing to pass as quickly as possible, as early as possible, since it's going to take so long. If I wait until the end of my term to pass this, it's not really going to help us. So we're going to start with that. And yeah, so right now I'm going to focus on things that can help bring down corruption. There's lots of things I want to pass. But yeah, for example, community policing is great. It's relatively cheap and helps to bring down crime. Of course, we don't have any crime right now, so we can wait on that. I think under public services, we had a few more things to help. Code of conduct right over here. Government indemnity, I think this creates, yeah, this is more undemocratic, maybe more corrupt. International election observers is a good anti-corruption. It's also free. It's very unpopular. I think it's going to just upset the patriots over here. And then the government code of conduct as well. It's not quite as upsetting, but it's still pretty upsetting. It's cheap, but I think it helps to bring down corruption, as does the open plan government offices, which is it's not free, but it's still relatively inexpensive compared to our current budget. It's not as unpopular, and yeah, the idea is no closed offices, so hopefully it'll reduce corruption. Let's give it a go. I'm going to go all the anti-corruption things. I'm going to max them all out. Now, so it's going to continue to upset state employees, unfortunately. It is going to make liberals happy. We don't have that many liberals, but hey, at least that's something. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to pass more anti-corruption stuff. I'm going to go with the government code of conduct, which I think is anti-corruption, and it is. Again, we're just annoying the hell out of state employees, which is too bad, because they're one of the few groups that likes this right now. But that's not going to last much longer. Okay, that's a pretty good start. What else might we do? Now, we might be good with anti-corruption. I'm gonna hold off on that. Lots of good stuff that's going to be important to pass. The FGM mutilation, yeah, it's like a pin number. The female genital mutilation ban, FGM ban, is really important. That's one of the problems we have here in our country, is we have that going on. It drags down health, upsets women, for some reason, I can't imagine why. It upsets liberals. Conservatives are relatively, they're sort of in favor of that, because it's a conservative, traditional thing to do. But they don't actually care that much. If we ban it, they might get a little bit more upset. But honestly, probably a good thing to get rid of. It is worth noting that higher education will drag down FGM. Right now, education is not affecting it, but that's because our education is quite low. If we bring up education, that will help bring that down as well. And we can just ban it. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to go and implement this ban. And I'm going to say, like, heavily enforced, ban the hell out of it. So again, conservatives, because we're going against, sort of cultural history. They're a little bit disappointed by that, but more overall, people are going to be happy. And this is something else that's going to take a long time to kick in. So we're going to go and apply this change over here. We still had a lot of political capital. This is weird. Most countries, it would be gone by now. You'd have spent everything. You would have to just go from this point on. I would like to improve education. I would very much like to improve education. We could just change some of our funding, which might not be a bad idea, but we could also pass a few things that are nice. I love public libraries. Free school meals are pretty good. They're not that expensive. People like them, and they help to combat poverty in a very, very good way. I don't know if it boosts education. I can't remember. But we can also boost things like technology colleges. We can pass that. That's a good way to boost education. Stem cell research is quite powerful as well, although it will upset the religious. So we may have to sort of tiptoe our way into that. That may be more of a second term thing, at which point, hopefully, we've got enough stability that we can see if we can't bring down the religious membership. This doesn't mean, like, necessarily, our country's becoming anti-God or anything like that. It's more, we're people are going to be diversifying from considering religion as one, or membership in a religious organization as one of the most important things going on. And then we can pass a few more things that are sort of, on the gray side of what religion considers to be okay, like stem cell research, for example. There's a lot of stuff. We don't have any state housing. I don't know. Do we have unemployment or homelessness as a problem? Yeah, a lot. And state housing would be a really good way to combat that, but it's very expensive, and I'm not sure we want to do that right now. I'm wondering about just looking to boost, what is this? Executive term limit. Oh, we could get rid of that. Interesting. That I don't think was in there before. Neat. I wonder if we can literally use that to change our term limits as we go on. Science funding can be very expensive, but it's quite powerful. Boost technology, energy efficiency, directly boost GDP. I mean, it takes a long time to affect that. Makes state employees happier, mostly because we're spending more money on state employee stuff. It brings down unemployment a little bit. It also makes more state employees. We haven't seen that before. It's very expensive, very good. What else we got for school? State schools. Yeah, shared textbooks. Oh, it is really expensive. Really expensive to do. We're going to want to do it, but do we do that now? State health services, again, very, very expensive, but having poor health is a good way to bring down your whole country. Right, devolution. Interesting. If we boost this, patriots are upset by this, but we actually lower racial tension. What we're doing is we're decentralizing our nation, is what we're doing here. It dramatically improves democracy over 16 turns, although really, it's rooting out corruption is going to be one of the biggest impacts to democracy. It increases state employee membership, which again, we're upsetting them, so I don't know how much we want to boost that now. I love the boost to democracy, and it doesn't cost us anything. We might want to max that out. We've got creationism versus evolution. Notice if we go to evolution only, it will decrease religious membership, but it will upset the religious as well. Increases liberal membership and increases their happiness. It's one of your most powerful tools for changing the composition of your country. We could also just go this way and make the religious people happy. We could go more religious. This takes a long time to affect religious membership. It upsets them right away. It takes a long time to reduce membership. It's free, which is great. Legislative independence. This is also free. Separation of powers. Ah! Yeah, I think this was new. I don't think this is in the base game. I guess we may as well pass this one. The devolution one might be a little trickier because it does lead to more civil servants and whatever. This is free and has just a purely net good. Doesn't upset anyone, makes liberals happier, reduces corruption, improves democracy, and it's free. Alright, I'm passing that. Boom. And that used up the rest of my political capital. So that, I think, was a very strong first turn. We're going to go hit next and see exactly what we did. So, I was worried that that was going to happen. We got a credit rating downgraded. So because of our high deficit and debt ratios, our credit rating has downgraded, which is increasing interest rates, which means our current debt is costing us more and more and more. And this could quickly spiral out of control if we don't fix this. On the bright side is the world economy is still good right now. That is going to boost up our personal status. So world economy is this light blue. It did peak and is drifting down, which is not good because the worse the world economy is, the worse it is for us. You can see the black one over here is our interest rate. It's shot up dramatically, which is increasing our expenses at the same time, which is not pretty. Our income is basically flat and hasn't changed. Wasn't there something else? It's the end of term report, right? Polls, yada, yada, yada. Security briefing. Nothing too bad right now. Okay. Let's take a look at if we have changed our... I don't remember where... Democracy and all those things are... What's this? No, that's not it. This is democracy over here. Democracy basically still completely bottomed out. It's being dragged down by too many things, and we know that most things that we're putting in are taking a long time to change, right? We can see the number that it takes for the effect. Corruption's gone up. Of course it has. But all these forces that are going to bring it down It's sort of like a pale pink, and there's just a tiny little sliver of the dark red. A lot of these things have not yet begun to kick in and drag down corruption. And democracy is not going to be improved until the corruption goes away. So we're going to continue to try to root that out. Our GDP is basically still flatlined. It'd be nice if we could improve that. Skills shortage, really bad. So this you can often see paired together. You can have skills shortage means we don't have the right skills to fulfill jobs that businesses are looking for. But we also have really high unemployment. So there's a lot of people who would like to work, but can't because they don't have the skills to do the jobs. A great way to resolve the skills shortage problem, which is a huge drag in our GDP, is to implement, and yeah, we have so much freaking political capital, is to implement adult education subsidies. There's a cost, but again, compared to our current costs or expenses, it's not that bad. It's only a few billion. Who cares? I gotta sneeze. Oh my god, I'm sorry. And one of the things that really does, so it takes existing adults, it boosts education, but it very aggressively also targets skill shortage. Skill shortage is brought down by high education, but it's going to be directly countered by adult subsidies. So I'm going to max this out. Basically, grown-ups are going to get to go to night school and learn a new trade, and that will help to offset the skill shortages. Really, really great decision for us. It also directly boosts productivity, and productivity is, where is it? Is it this gear one? No, that's technology. Productivity is down here. One goes to many. Boosting productivity is another great way to affect tons of places in your economy. It also helps to compete against or deal with this uncompetitive economy, which is a really bad thing. And I mean, we could lower corporate taxes, we could boost productivity, and I think there's a few other things we can do to improve the uncompetitive economy, for example. So state employees did like us green, now they don't like us quite as much. This is their happiness over here. We can also take a look at their membership and their overall income and all the things that affect those things, which is really cool. Oh yeah, and you can check out the focus group over here. This shows you individual people. So you can see this person over here, Mahmood over here, is part of 7 different groups, including everyone. Everyone's in everyone. So he's a capitalist, conservative, he's poor, he's a parent, he is rural as opposed to urban, and he is in the religious group. But it's worth noting his inclusion in the religious group doesn't affect him that much, whereas other things affect him a lot. Conservatives are happy, but overall he's being dragged down a lot, and actually the everyone group influences him dramatically. If we ever want to get reelected, we really have to go and eliminate these things. Oh, hey, we can boost press freedom. So if we kill, okay, this is a really tricky question. If we kill freedom of the press, it combats very aggressively civil uprising. Basically, we just deny that there's any problems whatsoever, and the newspaper says that everything is awesome, and the civil uprising goes away. It's also makes everyone happy, because again, we're telling them lies. We're telling them lies with no press freedom. Everyone becomes happy, no one revolts anymore. The liberals get really upset, democracy takes a huge plunge, and corruption is basically unchanged. On the flip side, if we have maximum press freedom, we get a huge boost to democracy. It helps to bring down corruption, again, over 16 quarters, which is brutal. Liberals get happy. Has no impact on everyone. In fact, everyone doesn't get affected at all until you start to limit press freedoms, and has basically no effect on the civil uprising. Actually, any amount of... So here we get a slight downtick in civil uprising, and once we cross around here, now this has no impact on civil uprising at all. So it's not helping to combat civil uprising directly, but indirectly it will, because we'll have lower corruption and higher democracy. I think we need to do this. And I don't like the fact that this isn't going to help directly remove one of the greatest problems that we're facing, which is the civil uprising, which was, what, this one over here? But it is starting to come down, which is good. Hopefully, we will help. What else can we do? Ooh, torture use is actually bringing down civil uprising. We're going to want to get rid of torture at some point. Do we prioritize it right now? I don't know. We can, pass more wiretapping. We can decide that the best thing to do for our country, maybe only in the short term, yeah, that's always how it starts, is to be more oppressive and get rid of these civil uprisings. Right now, I mean, people are uprising because we have a crap government, but we could become a more crap government to just stop people from being able to do this, which... Power blackout's pretty bad, mostly because we have really, really, really poor infrastructure. We could improve road building. We could improve technology for it. Our economy type is a thing. We have a relatively, I believe, sort of rural, raw resource economy. And it would be quite nice if we could bring our economy type up to a more modern manufacturing economy, which we could do with more technology, more infrastructure. Note, economy type is affected by infrastructure and affects infrastructure. So it's an interesting sort of a feedback loop going on there. Really great. Still would love to bring education up a bit more. It's still currently flatlined. You know what I want to do? Because I love this policy. I want free school meals. So we're going to do that. And you can see the higher it is, so it brings down poverty. It also brings down obesity because in theory we're feeding them just healthier food. Improves poor earnings. It does create more parents, but makes parents slightly happier. Makes socialists happier. Improves health. It does take a long time, 16 quarters for that. But health, and we have really bad health right now. Health is something that has a massive effect on your country's economy. If everyone is sick, no one can work very well. So it brings down productivity and all these things. It's not that expensive. I mean, it is something. I love free school meals, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Still don't need community policing. We do have detention without trial, which is helping them bring down. I mean, I think I'm going to want to get rid of this at some point, especially since it's hurting. It's hurting foreign relations and democracy. So if we brought it all the way down to 72 hours, liberals still won't be terribly pleased that this is still a thing. And the Patriots will still be relatively happy that this is still a thing. But it'll eliminate all downswings on foreign relations, democracy. But it also won't help to bring down our civil uprisings. Still, again, we're hoping to bring down our civil uprisings more or less indirectly. So I think we're going to do that. We could just cancel it completely. But by having it here, well, actually, the only difference between having it 72 hours and canceling it completely is how much patriots and liberals feel about this. So I guess the question is, okay, we have a lot of patriots. I don't want to upset patriots. In fact, I would prefer to keep them a little bit happier. So I'm not going to cancel it. I'm just going to bring it down to 72 hours. Police can hold people without a trial, without officially charging for anything, for 3 days. But then they've got to charge them or let them go, or have a trial and then let them go. So we're going to apply it here. Later on, we may want to get rid of it completely if we really want, a really great little society, but for now, that's going to do it. I would love to increase, not toll roads, but our road building program. That's very expensive, though. Wow, from 60 billion to almost 120 billion, so we double it up. I don't know how much our traffic congestion is a problem, but it helps bring down unemployment a little bit, because, we're making jobs, but it boosts infrastructure a lot over time. Improves motorists and car usage, or motorists get happier and there's more car usage. The problem is car usage is one of the big contributors to pollution. We've got a lot of pollution, which is one of the reasons that environmentalists are so upset, and it also brings down health. I think we're going to want to get rid of the death penalty, but it doesn't have to be now. Notice that religious people are properly upset by death penalties here. I don't know, because only God is supposed to deal with that or something. I'm not sure. What is this one? Yes, minority sexualities. So, not being hetero is completely illegal. Or on the right, we force them to do it. Okay, no, that's not entirely true. We're not going to mess with that now because we have too many conservatives and religious. This would cause a riot. It would be very, 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 very bad. It does make our country more democratic if we go and eliminate discrimination. And actually, we could bring this right down to the middle. If we bring it right over here, it's going to start to upset the religious, but the conservatives are still going to be okay with us. It brings down a huge drag on liberals, and also will eliminate one of the things bringing down democracy. So it's still not going to be all the way there. We could actually bring it right here. It looks like at this point it's not bringing down democracy at all. Actually, might technically be bringing up a tiny sliver. Yeah, we can mouse over and see. So basically, it removes the drag on democracy. It removes all penalties to liberals. And the conservatives are still okay. Religious are upset a little bit, but I think this is a pretty net gain. Let's go ahead and do that. Also, it's called being a nice guy. What is this thing? Corporal punishment usage. Oh, we're out of political capital. We can't do anything anymore. So, next turn. All right, let's see what happens. Global economy is still doing okay, although I suspect it's still dripping down a little bit. Poverty is dropping a little bit, which is great, probably thanks to our school lunch programs. I think unemployment has gone up a bit. Which is kind of sucky, but there it is. And we have a decision to make for children's food. Do we start to regulate the fat content and nutritional value of food sold to children? So if we leave the law unchanged, capitalists will like it, free market and all those things. If we regulate it, capitalists will probably be upset, but presumably with the hope that, assuming we regulate this correctly, health will improve. And potentially, depending on how this event works, I'm not sure, it might also have an effect on sort of poor earnings or something like that, because maybe they just get higher value food for their buck. I'm not sure that that's the case. I suspect it's a question of, do we upset the capitalists or not, or do we improve health? And I think we're going to go with regulating the children's food over there and see how that goes. And we could take a quick look at health and see. Children's food, yeah, it's going to boost health a little bit. We still have so many things bringing it down that even with all the pro-health things that we've implemented, like the free school lunches and stuff, it's still basically at 0 health. That's really bad. FGM is going to drop over time, and it is, so eventually that is no longer going to drag down our health. Pollution is a big anti-health thing. I'm not sure that we can start passing anti-pollution stuff at this point, though, which is too bad. Obesity is still a problem. We are going to try to improve it with the children's food decision and the free school meals, which is good. And like many things, improving education will also help. Well, we're going to put a cut in here. This part has gone on long enough. We are going to continue to try to tackle our problems going forward. What is... Democracy still basically pinned down to 0, mostly because of the high corruption. Not to mention the military interference. We can take a look at that next, maybe. Corruption is starting to drop finally. It's been rising for a bit, but it's finally starting to go down as more and more of these things are going in. Military interference still going up. God damn it. Right, because of the poor stability. We could cut back on the military spending. That would be another thing. The poor stability. Stability is improving, though, and it's mostly being dragged down because of health, education, and poor democracy. And the corruption and the racial tension. Stability is improving, and if we can get this... So again, it's a giant feedback loop of a lot of these effects, like poor democracy is leading to poor stability, but poor stability leads to the military interference, which brings down democracy. Well, hopefully we're making things better. We are... we've gone 6 months, that's it, into our thing. Not very far in, but now that we've done a lot of the explanations, we can hopefully go through this a little bit faster. We'll see how it goes. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed Democracy 3 Africa here, and we'll be back with another episode very soon. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.